I went to Vegas to see Battlebots Destructathon, and it was, yes, certified epic. We flew out of Milwaukee Sunday afternoon, and since we weren't scheduled to see Battlebots until Friday, we obviously did a lot of other stuff in Vegas. It was super fun. Definitely recommend it. I'm not even 21. Might go back there once I'm of age. But since videos weren't allowed inside Destructathon, I did take some pictures, and the rest of the video is just going to be a slideshow of all the things that we saw and did in Las Vegas. There's going to be a couple videos in there. It was a whole lot of fun. Anyway, back to BattleBots. Destructathon is made up of 5 fights, and when I went to see it, the fights were Kraken versus Tasbot, Malice versus Overkill, Nightmare versus a slot machine, Whiplash versus Chopper, and Witch Doctor versus Hypershock. Trey Roski and Bradley Handstad, the captain of Triton, drove all the bots. The showbots are technically super heavyweights, with most weighing over 300 pounds, and the weapons are much slower than they are on TV. There's no like massive hits or like robots flying in the air. Even though Trey Roski and Bradley Handstad were operating the bots, they still had actors play the quote teams of the bots. They walked out of the tunnel to music. They gave a little speech to introduce myself, and they even gave a post-fight interview as if they were the ones fighting the bots themselves, even though they weren't. They were in fact actors and not the bot builders, but I do like the fact that they were there, as without them it wouldn't have been nearly as engaging. The costumes were kinda derpy since a lot of the teams on the show just have like t-shirts or wear engineer garb, but hey, you know it's Vegas, gotta go all out, right? Alright, so Kraken versus Tasbot started the show, and Kraken started the fight by ripping the back end off of Tasbot, which detached sort of in the same way as when Red Devil fought Valkyrie with the pod, the back 2 wheels going off on its own, while Kraken bullied Tasbot until it lost radio signal and died. Yeah. Sort of an unfortunate way to lose, but you know, that's how it is sometimes. One thing I did notice during that fight is that Kraken's airbag is really, really loud. It's kind of crazy. The battle box is much louder in real life, and it really made me wonder why they don't put natural, box sound in the show, because the pulverizers hitting the floor, the steel on steel hitting each other, it sounds awesome. So, second fight, Malice versus Overkill. Malice looked pretty good, and it was getting some good hits in, even while getting shoved around by Overkill. It shredded a wheel off of Overkill, and they looked like they were about to get the second wheel before it also lost radio signal and died. Yeah, honestly, at that point, I was worried that that would become like a running theme throughout the show, but thankfully that was the last time it happened throughout the night. Also, Malice had a flamethrower for some reason. I don't know. Another cool thing about Destructathon was exclusive interviews and footage from the actual 2022 taping. While bots were loading into the arena, a video would play introducing the bots with teams from the show, giving their thoughts on the bots, ending with a personal message from the builder of the bot being introduced. I believe the footage was all taken in 2022, but parts might also have been from 2021. One thing that stuck out to me was Anna Zolnikov from Ripperoni geeking out over like every single bot, and her enthusiasm for the teams and the sport in general was just next level. It gives me another reason just to love Ripperoni. We even got to see Dave Eaton from Rusty talk about his journey with building Rusty, although I think that segment was from 2021 and was already aired last year. They also played the 10 nastiest knockouts that I believe was aired earlier this year on Discovery, but since I don't have cable and I just streamed the show on Discovery Plus, that part was new to me. It was great. We got some oohs and ahs from the audience, especially for the number one, which is, I think, Hypershock disintegrating Gigabyte in midair. It was great. Alright, moving on. Nightmare versus a slot machine. I presume that this is the part of the show where if there was a bot in residence, that would be the fight, but since there wasn't that day, we got to see Nightmare blow up a slot machine. Cool. I've read online that in the past, the slot machine was just completely stationary, but when we saw it that day, the slot machine was actually attached to Jinsu's chassis and was driven by Jeff Waters from Jackpot. That was the only time in the whole show that he came out on stage, and he replaced Trey Roski for driving one of the bots, but I don't get why he wasn't there more. But it was cool to see him nonetheless. I'm not going to lie, it was pretty awesome to see Nightmare shred a slot machine. So, after they cleaned up the slot machine, it was Whiplash versus Chopper. They introduced Chopper as like a heel, the bad guy, and it was the only one that didn't get an introductory video. It was kind of disappointing since I would have liked to see Zach Goff again, who built the robot. He's the one that built Poison Arrow and Copperhead, but it's whatever. Chopper had these pyrotechnics coming out of the tubing on its back end, which were sort of cool, but kind of just made the fight hard to see. After the sparklers on Chopper died, it got a few good hits in on Whiplash and even ripped off a wheel, but as we all know, Whiplash is just as good on 3 wheels as it is on 4, and it ended up flipping over Chopper for the win. I don't know if Chopper can self-right with the hammer, but, it makes sense for them to not get back up since they were scripted as the heel. And then the final fight, the main event, Witch Doctor versus Hypershock. Hypershock started off strong, ripping a front wedge off a Witch Doctor, but Witch Doctor fired back with a couple good jabs before flipping Hypershock over. Hypershock couldn't get anything going after getting flipped over, even though it could, drive upside down, and Witch Doctor easily dominated the rest of the fight. And this was the only fight of the night that went all 3 minutes, and judges' decisions at Destructathon are decided by the audience cheering, and Witch Doctor easily won the decision. Pretty great stuff. Overall, it was just a very enjoyable experience. I mean, I'm 20 years old, and I had a lot of fun, even though it's obviously made for younger kids. It was produced really well, and there wasn't any real downtime where, nothing is happening. When they're prepping the bots or setting up the arena, there's always a video playing to keep the audience engaged. I even got to say hi to Bill Dwyer after the show and give him a high five, which was cool. He gave me boxes locked, the lights are on, it's robot fighting time, even though he's not the one that actually said that back in the day. Yeah. Obviously, don't come into the show expecting something like the actual TV bots, because they don't hit as hard. They're meant to do multiple shows a week. There wasn't anything getting flipped into the ceiling or stuff like that. Weapons were far under 250 miles per hour, probably under 100, if I'm being honest. But, if you're in Vegas, it's a really great experience just off the strip. Definitely check it out.